Yellow Room Briefing for Red Letter Agents, number 306. The Lantern Society. Which is the oldest occult order, and which could be proven by historical records, is a subject of hot debate amongst researchers into the mysterious. Contrary to claims by the surviving offshoots of the Golden Dawn, the Temple of Light, the Christian Second Fellowship, the Rosicrucians, and that certain popular fraternal order one finds in most American and European cities, the oldest occult orders are extremely hard to establish. Because true occult orders do not have publications, nor do they issue periodicals, nor do they maintain chapter houses squatting openly visible to the public eye on the corner of the town square. The word occult does mean hidden from view, after all. One such society that has recently come to our attention and has become trusted by the End Times staff is that of the Lantern Society. The Lantern Society wrote its privately held bylaws and traditional code of ethics in the latter part of the 14th century. The society was, according to its legends, founded by a priest who had discovered evidence that Pope Clement V had accepted a large bribe from King Philip the Fair of France. Needless to say, if you do not have an in-depth knowledge of history, you will not understand why that is important. It is widely believed amongst conspiratorialists that the Knights Templar, which Philip had a personal distrust for, and were begun to be persecuted by the Catholic Church under Pope Clement, may have had access to either secret knowledge or a vast treasure. It is also held that this order of the Knights Templar is the basis for most modern orders of esoterica. Now, this priest's reward for his faithfulness in revealing a weak and corrupt pope was not praise, but to be defrocked and whipped publicly in the public square. Orazio Vanesca Ololorni never forgave nor trusted the church after his public humiliation. Loyal servants of his who still resided inside the Vatican smuggled him out of jail, and also his effects, which was a prodigious library of notes upon secret scrolls that had been maintained in the Vatican's library, because Ololorni was one of those rare individuals who seemed to be able to speak any language with relative ease. This had led him to be one of the key reviewers and translations of Latin documents, Greek documents, Aramaic, and other foreign documents that the Church used to establish its authority from first-century Christians. And many of these works, well, it's well known they might have been either what today would be considered heretical or involved the war with Christian Gnosticism, that is to say, the war with magic. One of Orazio's fellow escapees that managed to get out of the yoke of Clement was a Jewish mystic by the name of Shin-Mei Dan, and another of his escapees that traveled with him was a Muslim dervish named Farud ibn Akar, and each of these also had their own extensive libraries of rare and forgotten books from their part of the world. The three mystics spent a great deal of time together, almost a year, and in the hidden record of all things true, what we believe to be the title of the Lantern Society's version of, well, there's no other word for it, a Bible, they recount an encounter that they had in the pre-dawn light when they were keeping a vigil. About 4 months after their fellowship, Ololorni had felt the need to keep a vigil and prayer as a petition to God to grant him a vision on how to save Christendom from corruption. As they had come to admire his scholarship and character, both Dan and Akar joined him. They were given a vision, but not of any angel nor paradisial realm. What greeted them was a horrific landscape full of twisted trees and warped animals. From a great black throne of basalt, a human-like being with a spider's head sat in judgment of those poor souls that were driven before it. And into its maw went the old, the young, the innocent, and the guilty. None were safe from its hunger. Swarms of dog-sized black flies blocked what little light peeked through the dark purple clouds, and the monster ate on ravenously. Then their vision shifted, and they were approached by a woman that was not quite human. Long wings sprouted from where her arms should have been, and her legs were those of some bird of prey. The three mystics recognized this apparition as the traditional depiction of a cherubim, a warrior spirit or warrior angel, such as those which decorated the top of the Ark of the Covenant in the time of antiquity. The mystics bowed, and the angel drew in the ground before them a triangle, in which a spark of light was kindled. Before this light the darkness that surrounded them fled, and a sphere of protective light surrounded them. In Hebrew letters the angel then scratched a message to the mystics which they have kept secret, at least as far as we can tell, even from most of the members of their society. They awoke from their nightmare voyage thinking of what they had experienced was some shared dream brought on by fasting and a lack of sleep. Yet the triangle had migrated from the dreaming world to their own, and the great light still shone within it. Taking this as a sign that God favored their endeavors, the three men began their society to preserve this mystic light and to bring true knowledge to the deserving. They placed the holy light into a lantern, and forever after their society bore this as their name. The Lantern Society has been in the background of almost every other society that has dedicated itself to mystical matters. There are some that say the Hermit card in the tarot deck is a sign of their influence in Europe. Others point to strange six-pointed stars painted and sculpted in the cathedrals of the Near East as monuments of testament to their power in Eastern Europe. More evidence that they have left behind seems to be in the presence of special houses of prayer in the lands where one normally sees minarets rather than church towers. And in these special prayer houses, poetry is read and strange teas are sipped, and the effect stays with the heart long after it normally would have receded. Librarians, hermits, seekers, poets, all these are subtle names that refer to the Lantern Society. Other less savory names may be things such as Knights Templari, assassin, fanatic. What is known of their teaching is scarce, and each bit of evidence we have gleaned and been able to keep is removed from the others across a far expanse of time. But the following assertions are considered to be more than just conjecture by the Yellow Room. Point 1. The Lantern Society believes that all politics is futile. They do not normally involve themselves in wars or politics, save with such special operations meant to save civilian lives. 2. They believe that in every human being there is a divine sphere that protects them from all ill-intended spirits, and that together humanity can create a joint sphere that can defend a town, a nation, or perhaps even the entire planet. 3. They believe that teaching humanity to be more moral and trusting in one another is a better way to defeat the dark beings than slugging it out with 45 caliber bullets and blessed steel. 4. They do not seem to comment on religious matters at all, other than to say that one must be religious, and they seem to imply that the Abrahamic monotheism is what they intend in this statement. 5. They seem to believe that the apocalypse, the resurrection, and other common features of the religious stories and theology are in fact only partially understood, and that the truth behind these things is much more terrifying than what humanity has been led to believe. 6. They seem to believe we, as a species, do not have much time remaining to avert some terrible fate. 7. The Society has the following mottos that describe it. Quote, "A single candle is all it takes to dispel the darkness." End quote. And also, quote, "Remember that God sees all." End quote. It is confirmed that the Lantern Society has meeting places around the world, but there are no buildings that are specifically theirs. One will never find a lodge house for the Lantern Keepers, as one would find for a traditional, conventional fraternity. They conduct their affairs privately or within the structures of other organizations. Entry into their number is only given to those that have proven that they are dedicated to the cause of goodness and the defense of humanity. Such prospects awaken one morning to find a small silver sculpture of a hand holding a lantern on their doorstep. The sculpture arrives with a letter underneath it, inviting the recipient to some secret initiation. The term Lantern Keeper is often used on this invitation as some kind of rank that the issuer of the invite has attained. Other literary and news articles have revealed two more terms that might be rankings, that of Seeker and Knight, and it seems that the secret order uses these to assign functions to its members. Thus, a Seeker has a particular function that differs from a Knight that differs from a Lantern Keeper. It is the general belief amongst occult researchers that the Keepers find prospects to maintain the Lantern Society and also care for its lore, that the Seekers do the field work investigating weird occurrences, and that the Knights, well, they smite things. But again, this is entirely conjecture. The Lantern Society does not reveal what it is involved in, but we have proof of what they have done. Some Lantern Society members escorted Catholic missionaries when they explored the New World. Others presented Jefferson Davis with a plan to cease hostilities and for the Confederacy to keep its sovereignty if the South would forsake slavery. When they were declined, these same agents of the Lantern Society began helping the Union instead. We know that one, Abraham Mell, was the surgeon who saved the life of Jerome Rhine, the founder of the End Times. One Lantern Keeper working at the OSS during the World War II is rumored to have sent black propaganda missives into the occult societies of the Nazis to continually destabilize them and prevent them from some nefarious deed. We also know that one of the Knights met with the IDF when they were planning Operation Thunderbolt, and another worked at the CIA to help wreck the Soviet Union. Seekers of the Lantern Society seem active in archaeological recovery and anthropological studies and are sometimes encountered around the world. The order does not seem limited. That is to say, it does not seem to have limits that we understand, and seems to operate under strictures that are only partially based on the religious edict it has inherited. Nor does it seem to be entirely inclusive after the year 2000. Before this year, we can find no mention of any minority faiths being members, or have any proof of any minority faiths being members of the Lantern Society. But after it, we do have proof that there are Sikh, Baha'i, Hindu, and Buddhist members of their effort. In 2001, shortly after the terror attack in New York City, the End Times was approached by a representative of the Lantern Society. While the End Times gives its dangerous items and specimens reporters may encounter in the field to the Special Division of the FBI for internment or disposal, it tenders items of interest to the Lantern Society to them, and eerily enough, they seem to be aware that the item will be found before we encounter it. The Lantern Society in return provides the End Times with items of alchemical and arcane power. The reserve of protection amulets that we have on hand, for instance, is one such example. This has greatly increased Red Letter agent survivability, and we are likely to continue working with them in the future for this very reason. However, like all wizards ever written in fiction, the Lantern Society is a closed society that guards its secrets, and we cannot know what their aims are for sure, nor can we fully trust them. Red Letter agents are advised to remember that the Lantern Society is an ally, not a trusted friend.